好的，大家好，我是刘秀芝，欢迎大家来参加今天 ABAF 和 Finra 主办的讲座。今天的主题和投资诈骗有关，主要是跟大家分享如何识别和避免诈骗。那今天以下全程我们将用英文来介绍。Welcome everyone to this seminar hosted by ABAF and the Finra. I'm Shouqi Liu, today's host. So we have the great honor to have two speakers from Finra to talk about investor insights, spot red flags to avoid fraud, and learn financial tools for smarter investing. So the seminar today will begin with a brief introduction of the speakers, followed by about 40 minutes of presentation. Then we will have the Q&A section at the end. Florence, which is part of the supporting team here, will field the questions from you via the YouTube chat. And we also here have Melody Liu, who coordinates this event by inviting and communicating with our guest speakers along the way to make this event possible. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce Christine Kieffer and Brooke Hickman. As shown in this slide, Christine is a senior director of the Finra Investor Education Foundation. She has over 25 years of financial and investor education experience. Her current role is to direct research and develop programs for law enforcement, victim advocates, and the consumers to advance investor protection and fraud prevention initiative. She also served as advisory board to the National Adult Protective Services Association and the Cybercrime Support Network. Brooke Hickman is currently the director of Finra's Vulnerable Adults and the Seniors team, called VAST. The mission of this team is to deter, detect, and investigate the financial exploitation and abuse of seniors and vulnerable adults. Prior to joining this team, she is also on the Finra's member regulatory department and the cyber examiner. And before joining Finra, she has also worked in the industry as a financial advisor and also worked at a large mutual fund companies. So it's a great honor to have both of you here. So let's welcome you, and please take the podium to tell us about fraud protection. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and good evening, good morning, midday, wherever you are in the world. We're glad that you're joining us for this session. I'm delighted to be joined by Brooke. We were invited because we met one of your alumni, participant Grace, a participant with the foundation, who at another event in the U.S. in Nevada earlier this winter, and had a great conversation. And she said that she knew that your club would really benefit from this information. So thank you for inviting us. I'm going to share my screen, and then Brooke and I will share some investor tips and some information about red flags of fraud, but we'll also be happy to take your questions. And thank you for the introduction. And with that, I'll just introduce who Finra is, because many of you may not know of Finra. Finra is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. In the United States, we are a self-regulatory organization, and we oversee what is commonly referred to as stockbrokers and brokerage firms. It says broker-dealers here, and it's a special class of investment professional and firm that Finra specifically oversees. We are not part of the U.S. government. We are a not-for-profit private organization. However, we work alongside and under the oversight of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And with this responsibility of overseeing broker-dealers in the U.S., we have the authority to enforce rules, to write rules, to enforce those rules, to deter misconduct from anyone who chooses to break the rules. We surveil. It was mentioned that Brooke had spent some time working in our member supervision department doing examinations. We look at the firm activities and their sales practices so that we can detect and prevent wrongdoing to protect you, the investor. Our mission is investor protection and market integrity. And for anyone who does break the rules, whether knowingly or intentionally, we have an opportunity to discipline those rule breakers. And this is all part of the U.S. regulatory scheme for investment professionals. And with that, all the financial firms that you might have, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, these types of firms are the types of firms that we regulate. And so most of what we're going to talk about tonight is related to investing and in the markets and how we can detect red flags, particularly related to investing. But first, I want to talk more broadly about scams today and fraud today. Around the world, countries across the globe are seeing problems, increasing problems with scams and frauds targeting consumers like you, like me, like everyone on the call today. In the United States specifically, the Federal Trade Commission, which is one of the regulatory bodies as part of the government, received about 2.6 million fraud reports. But the total lost, this was just reported to them, was $10.5 billion reported lost in 2024. And we all know that the real numbers are much, much greater because of the great deal of underreporting. People don't always come forward. They may be embarrassed. They may not know where to turn. So this number is certainly smaller than the real number. It's estimated that the real number is much closer to 150 billion, if not much more. And this was just in 2024. And these numbers have been going up year over year around the globe. This is not just a problem for US consumers. And particularly in the US as well, through our data, the Federal Trade Commission data, they're able to identify what types of scams are being reported at the greatest frequency. And across the board, imposters, and I'm going to talk about what an imposter scam is and how you can recognize it in just a minute. But the broad category of imposter wins the day. But we also see a lot of fraud and scams still in our online shopping, and in business and job opportunities, employment scams, and investing, as well as internet services. But investments is really where we're going to spend our time today. I will say that last year and the year prior and the year prior, investments was not in the top 5. So this is a rapidly increasing problem, and it's increasing in scope and scale as well as dollars lost. So what do you need to know to protect your money when it comes to investing in particular? I mentioned imposter scams come in many, many, many forms. You may be familiar with government impersonation scams. So many years ago, I think all of us would say our phones were ringing with in the US, the IRS scam. And people that were scammers that were impersonating the Internal Revenue Service, trying to tell us we were behind on back taxes and someone was going to come to our door and arrest us for not paying our taxes. This has evolved. There are many different variations of government impersonation scams, the Social Security Administration, and in other countries that we see the same problems. Wherever there is an actual authority to engender fear in us, the scammers will use that and impersonate those authorities to convince us that we need to send them money. The same thing happens with companies, financial professionals. We're going to talk more about that in particular today. Celebrities. They're individuals that are impersonating celebrities and befriending individuals on the internet. And it feels like they're the real individual. And it seems like they're the real individual. And as Brooke will be talking about with artificial intelligence and AI, sometimes it looks like it's legitimate. And in product impersonations. And the example I have over here on this side of the screen is one that's been circulating quite heavily in the United States in the last couple of months, where we see you receive a text out of the blue that says that you have a toll violation that you didn't pay, and that you need to click on the link to pay it now. And at first, this is actually one that I received. At first, it was more generic, but over the couple of months, we saw the scam becoming more and more personalized. So sometimes my name was on it. Easy Pass is the type of pass that's in my area, but Brooke is in Florida and it was coming through his Sun Pass. So there was customization so that this feels believable and feels real. And so they use our familiarity with products and services to convince us that something is legitimate. When it comes to investing, how does this imposter type scam play out? Well, I mentioned that investment losses keep rising related to scams. In 2024, approximately $5.7 billion were reported lost to the Federal Trade Commission, just related to investment scams. And that includes cryptocurrency scams. And if we look at this even further from a different database, the Better Business Bureau, which is a federation of organizations, nonprofits around the United States, Mexico, and Canada, that service communities with to encourage trust in businesses, particularly small businesses. And they also have a scam tracker tool. And when we look at the Better Business Bureau scam tracker, and we are able to dissect that information by age, as you see on the screen there, investment and cryptocurrency scams are one of the top 3 for every age category that's captured, and particularly among the sort of middle age and older adult population. And so that's where we really want to make sure you have the tools you need. So at Finra, we see some of these scams. We see how they play out in the investment context. And so we're going to focus on those. One type of scam that FINRA is seeing and other regulators are seeing, and even other types of businesses are seeing, is an imposter scam where the scammers are pretending to be a support center for a well-known business. So maybe you need a phone number or the URL for a business, and you go to your search engine of choice and type in that name. And some of the first things that come up might be sponsored ads. What's happening in this particular scam type is that the scammers are actually purchasing sponsored ads. They are stealing the logos and the names of legitimate businesses and pretending to be them. In this case, if you were to click on this first sponsored link and it was a legitimate looking logo and it sounded like the company you were looking for, and you clicked on this particular hyperlink, it would actually take you to an imposter website and an imposter call center that would be convinced to either install malware on your computer or to drain you of funds in some way with another part of their pitch. So they might even request remote access to your computer, which could lead potentially to something called the tech support scam. And in tech support scams, your computer is essentially co-opted to, the scammers can get into your computer and monitor your accounts. They can see your passwords. They might be able to track when you're typing and therefore steal your funds directly. We encourage you, if you're going to be looking for a support center or a legitimate business, scroll past the sponsored ads and go to the results that come up from the search directly, because those results are based on search engine use and they're more likely to be the legitimate business. Most sponsored ads are not necessarily scammers, but you don't want to be clicking on the wrong one. And so it's better to scroll down to the legitimate business. But even before that, if you have an account with a financial institution, you should have access to financial statements or maybe the app on your phone, and you can use that as an entryway to that organization instead of a search on the internet. And absolutely, no matter who you're dealing with, refuse remote access. If you're working with a support center that needs remote access to your computer, and if it's a computer problem that you're having, unplug it and take it into a known computer store to get it serviced. Don't allow remote access to your computers. Now, the next three variations of an investment scam I'm going to talk about all relate to one another. One of the fastest growing scams right now are relationship investment scams. And we no longer would limit these to romance. You might think in your mind, well, I'm not looking for a relationship or I'm not looking for a romance, and therefore this won't happen to me. But these scammers are really good at what they do. And Brooke's going to talk to us in a minute about persuasion and influence and types of tactics that they use to convince you that they're true. In these relationship investment scams today, they're starting as a simple text. These are all texts that I've received that I know would ultimately lead to a relationship investment scam. One is simply, "Are you home?" Now, if it was from my spouse or a friend that was registered into my phone, I would know who I was talking to. But in this case, it was a sender not in my contact list, and my phone tells me that. You forgot your bag. I just received this one last week. Why haven't you reached me by phone? Have you blacklisted me? So the scammers are trying to engage in a conversation, and they start with a question. And when you respond back, then they start to develop a banter. So let's say I responded to the "you forgot your bag," and it'd say, "Oh, wow, I was at the airport today. I think I got everything. You must have the wrong number." And this person or this thing on the other line of the other side of this text might say, "Wow, you are the nicest person. Thank you so much for responding to me. These days, no one would have responded to my text, and I'm so glad you did. You know, where were you flying from? Why were you just at the airport?" And then I might respond and might respond and might respond. And next thing you know, you're having a conversation with someone. This is how these relationship investment scams start. Don't even click on them. Don't respond back that you found someone else's bag or this is the wrong number. Just report and delete. Use this report junk button if that exists on your phone, or just delete it. This unexpected contact is always coming from an unknown person, or they might have a name that sounds familiar to you, but if you look at the information behind that name, it's not the right number or person's like email address. And they're trying to establish this friendship. Now, this is the beginning entry point of a scam. And most of these scams are being perpetrated by transnational criminal organizations who are utilizing all of their power and energy to try to steal money from you and others just like you and me and Brooke. They are not discriminating from who they are contacting. It's not based on age. It is simply to steal as much money as they can from as much people as possible. And these are very, very sophisticated organizations implementing these scams. This is not just, a singular person. So don't think that you want to engage. The other way the same type of investment scam is happening is on social media through investment clubs or purporting to be investment clubs. So these are two advertisements that our team at Finra pulled together, and Meta has since pulled down, where they were pretending these transnational criminal organizations had put ads through these organizations and through a series of transactions so that Meta and these other types of tech companies couldn't figure out who they were. And they pretended to be real celebrities. Jim Cramer is a famous investment professional. Kathy Wood is a famous investment professional. And this is not really Jim's ad, and this is not really Kathy's ad. But they can steal anyone's face today, anyone's information, and pretend to be. Now, in these cases, we can see that these are leading to a scam. They all entice you to come join them to get tips for investing. They might even use commonly traded stocks that you've heard about that sound like they're doing well today. And it might be interesting and intriguing. but they always lead, and you can see right in the middle of the screen, it says WhatsApp. They always lead to to an encrypted chat platform. In this case, it was WhatsApp, but WeChat, Telegram, all of the encrypted platforms are having a problem with this. And then so that while they find you in one location, you may be on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media platform, they're trying to lead you to encrypted chat where they can then be more persuasive to try to steal your money. So imposters are everywhere unless you really know exactly who you're dealing with. Today, we need to assume it's an imposter if we weren't looking for it. Certainly, if we weren't looking for it. Brooke will talk about more of those flags. And definitely beware. If anyone says anything about moving the conversation to an encrypted chat platform like Telegram, WhatsApp, WeChat, refuse to do so. Just stop the conversation. Just stop communicating with them. And sometimes it's a search, you were searching for a support center. Sometimes it's the social media investment club danglings. And sometimes you're added directly to an encrypted chat. So this is one that came to me, and I received it a couple of months ago, and I was just added. This was on WhatsApp, I think, but all the platforms have this. And someone added me. And all of a sudden, I was in the middle of this conversation. I wasn't even participating about stocks and hot stocks and returns, dangling returns. And this is all meant to try to entice us to engage with them. And once we engage, once we have a conversation, once we show them that we're willing to communicate, then they're really going to turn on the persuasion tactics. So all three of these entry points really lead to the same two places. So right here, I have the chat, I have the ad, or I have the WhatsApp group, or it could have even been one of the support center scams. And they tend to lead to two places. One, to an investment scheme where really they are pumping, which means promoting a known stock. But ultimately, you don't know. They're promoting it with lots of investors to encourage, to build hype, to encourage people to purchase. And ultimately, the scammers are controlling the stock and manipulating it. And the investors are left with worthless stock once that demand starts to diminish because it was fake demand to begin with. Or, so it's either an investment pump and dump scheme or a crypto scheme where, and we're going to talk about cryptocurrency, but not all crypto is bad. Not all crypto is fake. But in these schemes, they make you think that you're investing in crypto and encouraging use of a specific platform. But ultimately, this platform is fake and it's controlled by the scammers. You will always receive requests to keep everything secret, to keep quiet, not to tell anyone else that you're in on something special and that you can't tell anybody right now until later when you're earning your gains. They might even allow some initial returns. So you might see some returns on your account, and they might allow you to even withdraw some of those funds. But ultimately, this is just to convince you to pay more. So let's say you earned $10,000, or you thought you earned $10,000, and you tried to withdraw some of it, and you were able to. That just proved to you, or at least tried to prove to you, that this was a legitimate platform. And so try not to let that sway you to believe that something is legitimate. If someone is asking you or encouraging you to understand how to trade crypto and it's not something you were trying to do on your own, or if they're telling you specific stocks to buy and when to sell and when to hold and when to buy more, these are really, really strong red flags that something is not right with these recommendations. And you'll most likely be enticed to keep adding funds and might even be enticed to bring others in on the deal. A couple of weeks ago, I was communicating with a woman who had been brought into an investment scheme. She thought she was trading crypto. It was not a legitimate scheme. And before she knew it was not legitimate, She had encouraged her parents to invest because she was seeing such great initial returns. She encouraged her parents and her siblings to invest in this scheme. And she thought it was legitimate. And ultimately, between them, they lost $12.7 million. These are not small schemes. They're not small potatoes. These are very big, sophisticated, persuasive organizations. So the best thing you can do is not engage at all. If this is not something you were seeking, you don't need it, and it's a scam. Brooke, why don't you talk a little bit about the types of tactics that they're using to persuade us?
Absolutely. Thanks, Christine. So going on to the next slide, these are some tactics that criminals or fraudsters can use to perpetrate their scams. So phantom riches could look like you get contacted by somebody, they claim to have information about a hot new stock that's going to triple in value in the next 2 weeks. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. They may even show some fake documents to make the opportunity appear even more legitimate. And, the idea of these huge profits will entice you to invest without doing research or taking some time to think. That's the phantom riches, those huge profits. And Christine had talked about pump and dump scams. We have seen instances where it appears that the scammers already own a large quantity of that stock and they're kind of artificially inflating the price through the hype. And then once enough victims purchase it, the scammer then sells their shares. They make a profit, leaving the victims with worthless stock when the price crashes. And this example could also involve social consensus. So the scammers can say, so everybody's doing it, a lot of people have made money on this stock, and kind of that herd mentality can then kind of override critical thinking. Source credibility could come in the form similar to what Christine was talking about with the imposter schemes. Someone could contact, claim that they are an IRS agent or some type of government official, provide a fake name, maybe a fake badge number, and say that you owe back taxes. And if you don't pay them immediately, you're going to be arrested. And because they claim to be from a trusted, authoritative source, you might be more likely to believe that it's real and comply basically out of fear. In reciprocity, this is where a scammer will contact somebody, maybe by phone, email, and say, congratulations, you've been selected to receive a free Caribbean cruise, and we're offering this because you're such a loyal customer. And after the person accepts the gift, then the scammer will ask for something in return. So maybe a small processing fee or taxes to claim the prize. And because the victim feels like they've already received something valuable for free, they're compelled to reciprocate, even if it means kind of taking risks that they wouldn't normally take. And this example could also involve scarcity. If they said this Caribbean cruise is only going to be offered to a select few customers, it's only available for the next 24 hours. So it's kind of a manufactured sense of urgency that pushes someone to act quickly and not really take time to research or to think critically. So going over some of the red flags in action, Christine mentioned being asked to move the conversation to encrypted chat. So they could make you think that they don't want to let other people hear about it, which could, kind of exploit the principle of scarcity. And then the 6 months investment with profitability of 3 to 5 times, that is those phantom riches that I was talking about. They could say something like, we've helped hundreds of investors like you profit, kind of social consensus, everybody's doing it. We're controlling the risks, there's no downside, phantom riches. And so usually the scams that we are seeing will involve one or even more types of these tactics. So the common threads of most scams, again, impersonating that IRS agent or the government agent, giving source credibility. And if, again, Christine had mentioned someone contacts you unexpectedly and they tell you that, the time frame is limited, they're putting some type of urgency that you need to act, that will put people in a heightened emotional state, which reduces our ability to think critically. And, they'll reference crypto, gold, cash, and they'll use those kind of high pressure tactics to, again, incite a sense of urgency that you need to act. So what should you do? You should pause. You don't want to act on emotion. You have to slow down and maybe even talk to somebody else about whatever type of investment scheme or investment they're trying to encourage you to be a part of. Don't engage with unsolicited outreach. Don't answer the phone call or don't respond to the text if you don't recognize the number. These are intended, as Christine said, to lure you into the conversation. And don't click on unexpected links. My parents actually know to call me and verify if they get a text from me that contains a link in it. They will call and say, did you actually send this? Is this a legitimate link? But definitely, use those official URLs that Christine talked about. Don't click on the sponsored links. Go down to the beginning of the web search. And definitely, talk to somebody else if something seems off. So I'm going to go over just a little bit about crypto. So as Christine mentioned, we're not saying that crypto assets themselves are scams, but there are a lot of criminals who are using these assets to kind of perpetrate their scams. So cryptocurrency is a digital representation of some type of stored value, and it does have its risks. It's very speculative. You should only invest the amount that you are comfortable losing. So if you invest $50,000, you should be comfortable losing $50,000. It shouldn't be all that you have to your name. There are major questions about who is going to regulate crypto, how it's going to be regulated, which leads to confusion. And I think that this confusion can also then foster people taking advantage of that confusion and then using it to perpetrate scams. And also the tax implications are complicated as well. So artificial intelligence is the use of technology to kind of mimic human intelligence using data and algorithms to solve complex problems. So it allows computers to see, understand, and translate written language, to analyze data, to make recommendations. And generative AI uses machine learning to create new content. And any new technology comes with inherent risks that we should be aware of. But artificial intelligence can definitely be beneficial to investors. It can enhance access to customized products. It can lower costs. It can improve compliance efforts. But there's also risks. So there's risks of manipulation, of fraud. There's something called phishing, where you'll receive an email, you'll click on that link, and then you'll be convinced to provide some type of personal information, and then your personal information is compromised. And we used to tell people, if you receive an email out of the blue, look for spelling errors, and that's a red flag. But now with the use of AI, it's becoming less that there's going to be some type of spelling or grammatical error. They're able to use AI to format these fraudulent emails and make them look real. And then there's also something called deep fake. And this is where an image or a video or an audio recording is altered using AI to convincingly impersonate somebody. So you might meet somebody online and they say that they want to do a video chat with you, and you're doing a video chat. You're able to look at somebody, but it could be that they are using this deep fake technology to impersonate somebody else. So really to protect yourself, it's important to remain aware of advancing technology, make sure that you're monitoring your personal information, using complex passwords and multi-factor authentication. So when you enter in your password on some sites, they'll give you the option to use multi-factor authentication, or you type in your password and then they'll text you a code that then you have to type in. So it's just adding additional layers of security. Limit the information that you share about yourself, and definitely verify the legitimacy of anything before you act on it.
That's a good lead into the knowledge that we need to take with us. And as Brooke mentioned, scammers, good marketers, even on the legitimate side, utilize persuasion and influence and the types of tactics that we were talking about to get us to make emotional decisions. I don't know about for you, but for most of us, money in and of itself, money topics, money savings, spending, our habits, whether we feel like we have enough or earn enough or, whatever it may be, money is covered with emotional triggers for people. And so when it comes to persuasion related to money, it's just that much more powerful. And so the best things we can do is learn about these kinds of manipulation tactics and the types of persuasion and influence that fraudsters use, as well as some of these protective steps that we're going to talk about. Because when you can get out of your emotional brain, when you take the pause that Brooke recommended, you are stepping back into your rational brain. And that's where you can make the decisions that are the safest for your finances. So one thing that you can do with this knowledge is to think about what your sources of information are. So when you think about investing or financial decisions that you're making, what are the sources that you're using? Is it a club like this, your foundation here, and the Alumni Foundation, where you come and learn from experts on lots of different topics? Or are you overhearing conversation at a wedding or a party? Are you following influencers on the internet? In the finance space, we call them finfluencers. So people that talk money and are performing that service of being or that type of business. Are you reading, newsletters, or are they just served to you? Are you using social media for your finance and investment knowledge? Are you responding or being asked to respond? I have a Facebook profile here. This was someone that tried to friend me on Facebook. I didn't know him. But as you can see, he was immediately putting out that he was trying to at least pretend that he was a Bitcoin trader. And so who are the sources that you're looking to for financial information? And can you verify those sources, or are they coming to you? And that can be a red flag when someone is trying to manipulate us. So you can be an investigator. Now, this wasn't an investment scam, but this is an email that I received just a couple of weeks ago. And this organization, or excuse me, this scammer was pretending to be the Social Security Administration in the United States. What I found interesting about this one, this was an email, was that it said Social Security Administration in the email. On the left, you can see. But when I clicked on to see who was really sending me the email, if you look off to the right, it says, Faltiseni at faltiseni.ro. Last I checked, that was not any affiliated email address with the Social Security Administration. It would end in a .gov. Social Security is not going to email me anyway. But those are some of the kinds of clues that I could be investigating, even if I was enticed to engage. In this case, I wasn't necessarily enticed to engage, and I just wanted to demonstrate how you could identify this information. The other things that were really concerning about this email was it looked, as Brooke mentioned, the language is good now. The logos are easier and easier to steal, to replicate. The language can be replicated with all sorts of AI. Or if you get phone calls, the language, the former, red flags that we would notice where someone's accent didn't necessarily align with where that person should have been calling us from, that can all be overcome with AI today. So you really can't just trust some of our basic gut instincts. In this case, this person or this scammer was also trying to encourage me to download a desktop app, and that I absolutely couldn't use this on my phone. This is because phones have a different type of security protocol, and the desktop app is easier to manipulate. And so they were trying to encourage me, and this was probably going to lead to a tech support scam where some sort of malware was installed onto my computer, which would then cause it to freeze and potentially, engage me when someone I thought was helping me unlock my computer, but really it was a second scammer coming after me. The other thing I could have done, aside from looking around at the email, the other thing I could have done is just run a search. Now, we talked about don't necessarily choose the sponsored ad links at the top. And you also have to be really careful about the AI overview that comes right at the top as well. But when I ran a search that just said SSA email, so Social Security Administration email, I received some information, and it took me, it brought the Social Security Administration's legitimate URL up towards the top of the search results, the very top of the search results. And it was all sort of neutral information. So security is this, and they do that. But if I changed my search, so this is what's interesting about search. Search is based on the words that you enter. So if I change my search, and if you look in the search box, I added the word scam. So if I change my search to say SSA email scam, I get a completely different set of results. And in this case, I found out what some of the flags could have been. I might have received a notice that this is a common scam going around today, probably a link to a Federal Trade Commission article on it. And so just by changing what my search terms were, I found a much more strong result. So I encourage you, if you feel that you need to engage or you need to investigate further, and you think it might be a scam, add the words review, scam, fraud, so that you can elicit this kinds of information. It comes right into your search, and then you're more likely to find evidence that you need so that you don't engage with the scammers. The other things you can do is think about your own investor profile. Who are you as an investor? Are you someone who likes to, or who's, saves through an employer-sponsored retirement plan? Is that your primary investment vehicle? Are you someone who likes to search out stocks or mutual funds or exchange-traded funds that you like to purchase? That's up to you. And what's right for you is going to be right for you, not necessarily everyone else on this call, not necessarily me. So think to yourself, what are my goals with my finances? What kind of time horizons do I have? Am I saving for, retirement or a house? And how far from now is that? What time do I want to dedicate to in my investing decisions? Do I want to be watching the stock market day in and day out to make sure that I'm capitalizing on short-term gains or cutting off potential short-term losses? Do I want to dedicate that time? Do I have that time to dedicate? Or do I prefer some sort of more passive investment strategy? So you need to determine what's right for you. But if you take the time to figure out what your risk tolerance is, what your portfolio might be composed of to meet your needs, then you can go back every time anyone tries to entice you with a financial offer. You can go back to who am I as an investor? What am I really trying to achieve? Is this taking me off course? And it can just be a really good North Star. And you can also turn to financial professionals. There are lots of different types of financial professionals calling themselves all sorts of different names. Ultimately, anyone that's an investment professional in the United States needs to be registered with Finra, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or state securities regulators, depending upon how much money they manage, what their business model are, and a couple of other factors. But ultimately, any type of financial professional you're engaging with, and other countries have similar regulatory schemes in the United Kingdom and Australia, and others. So get to know, no matter where you're located, find out what your regulatory scheme is for investments, and make sure you understand how you can verify professionals. So sometimes those as imposters aren't government agencies. Sometimes they're financial professionals. They may be purporting to be a financial professional when they're not. So you can ask questions. What licenses and credentials do you have? What types of products and services do you offer? Not every financial professional has taps into the same types of services and products. And so you want to understand whether the relationship with that financial professional is one that's going to meet your goals and your needs that we just talked about. And you can determine, you can ask them about what kind of conflicts they might have, and ask for their customer relationship summary that should spell out some of this information for you. You can also get that information directly from a tool called Finra Broker Check. Finra Broker Check is a free tool. It's available at finra.org, and we're going to show you that website a few times, so you don't need to write it down right now. But Finra Broker Check is a free tool where you can look up, in the United States, you can look up financial professionals to find out if investment professionals in particular, to find out if they're registered with FINRA, the SEC, or the states, whether they've ever been registered and had some disciplinary history that you would need to know about. So in this example here, Joseph Q. Broker, Jane Q. Broker, John Q. Broker, these are all similar names. They might have all shown up in a search, but Joseph here has been barred. That means he's no longer able to give you investment advice or sell you investments. And so you would want to know that if Joseph Q. Broker was trying to earn your business. And so this is a free tool that you can use just to double check the background of the professionals you're working with. And if you already work with someone, you can look them up too. They won't know that you looked them up. There's not a tracking mechanism. And so feel free. You should absolutely be doing this. And if it's someone you've worked with and you trust them, you tell them, oh, I looked you up on Broker Check. Maybe they do have a disciplinary history of some sort. Maybe it's something serious, maybe it's not. You should ask them about that if there is one, but most financial professionals do not. This is a really good tool to help you verify that you're working with someone licensed and overseen by a regulator. You can also monitor and protect your accounts. That means you need to read your account statements. So many of us today, I receive a lot of email statements or electronic statements, or it'll say, go here to the app to get the statement. And it's so easy not to take the time to go and look, but you really need to. So at least check the monthly statement. If you have an app on your phone for your financial accounts, you can go in and look fairly frequently and just make sure there's not charges or inappropriate trading that you didn't authorize, or charges on your bank accounts that you didn't authorize. Just 3 days ago, I had to cancel a credit card because I had all these charges to Microsoft.com when I had not made any charges. So but if I wasn't looking, I wouldn't have even noticed this. So you've got to read your statements, pay attention to the types of fees that you're paying. Be alert to all these red flags that we were telling you about at the beginning. And Brooke already mentioned about using multi-factor authentication. That's one method of cybersecurity, cyber safety that you should be practicing. And right before I pass it back to Brooke, I will also want you to focus on one thing in the United States that FINRA has provided is to ask financial firms to ask their customers, that's you, to name a trusted contact. Now, a trusted contact is a name, a person. It could be one person, it could be 3 people. You can have more than one trusted contact. This is someone that the firm can reach out to you if they have difficulty reaching you, and they need to. You might be on a cruise. I think Brooke mentioned cruise earlier. You might be on a cruise. You might be visiting your family in Taiwan. You might be on vacation on the beach and not want to touch your phone, but maybe they need to reach you. The trusted contact is someone they can reach out to if they can't reach you, to verify that you're okay, that to see if there's another way to reach you. And this is if something's going on with your account, or if they suspect fraud or financial exploitation. Today, in fact, is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And that's a day celebrated globally to bring awareness to the devastation of elder abuse, and that includes elder financial exploitation. And a trusted contact is helpful in that regard, but it's not just for elder, it's for any age. Everyone should have a trusted contact. These individuals cannot transact on your account. They don't have access to the balances. That is not their purpose. Their purpose is to provide a secondary contact for the firm to reach you if they can't reach you. And Brooke?
Yes. So Finra also offers a helpline called the Securities Helpline for Seniors. And similar to what Christine said about a trusted contact, how it applies to everyone, not just seniors, the helpline is also a resource for everyone, not just seniors. And so you can see the phone number up here. But when you call, you will get a live person who answers. They have a wealth of knowledge about investments. So if you have a question about your investment account, or you have a concern about your investment account, or want to understand how to look up your broker or your brokerage firm, you could reach out to the helpline and they will be able to help you. And if it's something that we don't cover at Finra, so it's not within our jurisdiction, they can point you to other resources to help you as well. So we keep mentioning finra.org, but there is a lot of really great information, and there is a section on there that is just for investors. They have that tools and calculators that you can see there where you can calculate mutual fund fees, compare them to each other. There's also a broker check, which Christine went over with you. So there's a lot of great resources on finra.org. And we also offer investor insights. So there's tips on how to avoid fraud, understanding different investment strategies, personal finance tips, a lot of really great resources as well. And then some other helpful websites. So investor.gov is the US Securities and Exchange Commission website. They also have some really great resources. They have where you can research if you have an investment advisor. So it's a little bit different than the registered representatives at a brokerage firm. It's an investment advisor. They work typically on a fee-based schedule, and you can look them up there and again see if they have any type of regulatory history or complaints against them, and also just to make sure that they are registered. And then NASA is the North American Securities Administrators Association, and that is an association of state securities administrators who are responsible for protecting consumers who purchase securities or get investment advice, similar to what Finra does, but they are government organizations with the state. And if you have concerns, it's important to report. You can see the Securities and Exchange website there. Also, if it's an internet crime concern, the FBI has a website called ic3.gov that you can report to. Federal Trade Commission also has an area where you can report. And then the Better Business Bureau in the United States has a scam tracker, and it's a free tool that anyone can use to report scams. And you can also go in there and search the database to see if a similar scam has been reported.
Brooke, I'm just going to add, I added the Scam Survival Toolkit. If you or someone that you know or love has had a problem with a scam and need help finding next steps, the Federal Trade Commission, as reported on here, also has action steps that you can take. And the Better Business Bureau offers this Scam Survival Toolkit, which again will help you find the resources you need to begin your recovery. And we're happy to take questions, and we really appreciate your attention tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are.
Well, thank you so much, Christine and Brooke. This is really, fantastic educational seminars on fraud protection. And also thank you for, providing a good advices and the resources for us in terms of, smarter investing and protect, our investment assets. Okay, so now if we can unshare the screen, and Florence can probably start asking questions, from the chat and also from the YouTube.
Yeah. Sure, be happy to. I raised a question that I've experienced, and then I can pass on the mic to maybe Melody can share her experience as well. So I recently started seeing celebrities such as Jason Huang from NVIDIA or Morris Chen from Taiwan Semiconductor all want to offer free books on how they have generated their wealth as a free book on either Instagram or on Facebook, and wanting my contact. So is that something? So I didn't respond, which I'm glad after listening to you, I'm happy that I didn't do. Is this something that's worth reporting, or any advisement on how to deal with and then maybe reducing this type of scams?
I'll say yes, report it. If you're seeing it on social media, on, you said Instagram or Facebook or any of those, there's a report tool, and I would also encourage you to hit block while you're there. But yes, report it. We many times we don't report because we think, well, somebody else already saw it. It's everywhere. But it really is helpful to the businesses, the organizations, to regulators like us to continue to receive that information, because you might be the tip of the iceberg in terms of individuals that are being sort of shown that ad or contacted in that way. The other thing I'd add is that one of the reasons why not engaging is so important is when we show an interest, even if you abort the conversation before you lose any money or before anything goes too far. The fraudsters are actually capturing our data. They're capturing the fact that you are someone who responded. And what that means is you will be served more scams. More of them will come directly to you, be targeted to you, and ultimately you will receive one that feels really legitimate. And so the less we respond, the less we receive, the more, well, we still receive a lot, but the more we respond, absolutely more we're going to receive. And if you've been a victim of a scam, such as you mentioned, Florence, you have to be particularly careful that you do not respond to individuals who are now know you've been a victim and offer to help you, because we have it's sort of a three-part scam. There's the initial individuals that try to entice us and take our money, but then you have a recovery room scam, which is when they come and try to help you recover, but really they're stealing more money. And you might even have one that then pretends to be the law enforcement that's going after the recovery room scam. And so ultimately, if they're coming to you, it should be an incredible red flag. Brooke, did you want anything else on that?
No, you got it.
Okay.
Very cool. Melody, would you like to share the example you share in the chat?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I was served the same type of financial investment opportunity posts. Typically, it happens after I have gone into Google and researched about the subject. For example, I'm interested in knowing more about Jason Wang, about Catherine Wood, so Tom Lee, all these financial planners and influencers. And usually I would get served these almost look like real, authentic investment opportunity posts on my social media platform. And I did not respond to it, but I think the hackers are getting so sophisticated, they actually know what I am interested in and then scam me with the interesting posts.
Yeah, I would say with artificial intelligence, it's pretty easy to kind of keep track of what all of us are researching. And, it's good to kind of control the cookies when you go on to certain websites, because it's saving the information in your search history. And it's, very easy to kind of just click quickly accept all when you get that warning asking about the cookies. But I think that that could be part of what's being used to kind of monitor what you're searching.
Absolutely. And to add to that, the scams today, I mentioned that a lot of the fraud and scams that you're being served are being implemented by transnational criminal organizations around the world in lots of different countries. And what we're seeing today is scam as a business. So there are certain countries where a certain type of scam is more prevalent to be based. So for instance, in Mexico, we're seeing the Mexican drug cartels specializing in the family emergency scheme, where you may receive a phone call, particularly in the middle of the night or early in the morning, wherever you are, and it sounds like your grandchild or a relative in need. And today, as Brooke mentioned with AI, it's easier and easier to fake. So these individuals, they sound like your grandson, your granddaughter, your child. And because their voices are easy to replicate, I think it takes something like 17 words to fully replicate your entire conversations. And even today we're on YouTube, right? We've been captured for an hour talking. So anybody could take my voice and replicate me. And so we see scam as a business. So certain countries are specializing in certain ways, and they're monopolizing certain parts of the chain. So there are certain organizations that are really great at targeting you and getting you to engage at the front end. And then you might find a completely different criminal organization that then gets the lead, and then they take it to the next stage, and then they take it to the next stage. And so these are really sophisticated, and that's why it's even more important that you never engage at all, because you just don't want your name to be floating around as someone who engages, because they will just continue to bombard you.
There's another example in the chat that when you spot someone you care for, maybe falling for a scam, what do you do? Do you report on the person's behalf, or any advisement there?
There's not an easy answer to helping someone else who is being victimized if they don't believe they're being victimized. So if your loved one acknowledges that they have been involved in a scam, it's much easier to help them. You can help them find resources. You can help them report on their behalf, although it's always best if the individual reports. But what you most need to do is maintain a relationship with that person. The scammers are manipulating us to build relationships with us. And when we, as loved ones, even though our intentions are good, but when we come and say, "Oh my gosh, what were you thinking? How could you have done that?" The victim, your friend, your relative, your loved one, closes down. And now they think they're being judged by you, and rightfully they might be being judged by you. And so you are now not in a position to help them. So the most important thing you can do is to stay in a place of confidence and trust with that loved one, to lead them to finding their own, we call it finding their own aha moment. So helping them, maybe, sharing some videos, sharing some articles about others who have had the same scam, so that they start to recognize those flags and come to it on their own. But stay close to them, stay empathetic to the situation, because that is your best way to help them through this.
Yeah, Christine, I think that's a wonderful advice, because we tend to, as an outsider, immediately judge the victim, where the victim shuts down and stop pursuing any advice. And we see that all the time. And we, as friends or relatives, see it so obviously and wanted to help, but the more we try, the more we obviously point out that it's a scam, that the more shut down the remote they become. Yeah, that's a great advice.
That's
Thank
right,
you.
Melody. So if you say, I am so sorry this is happening to you. How can I help you? Let's see if, this sounds familiar. I think I've heard of some things like this, but these scammers are really sophisticated. They're good at what they do. They're professional fraudsters. And so let's investigate together, and try to keep that person close to you and stay on their side and bring your empathy.
Empathy. That's it. Thank you.
Those are the questions and comments I have gathered. Thank you.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So now I think we accomplished our goal. And thank you so much, Christine and Brooke, for sharing your, years of experience. And this is one of the reasons why, we run this seminar for our alumni association. Is basically to make the awareness that, people are be careful about those investment scam, and also more importantly, how to, protect ourselves, and especially in our retirement assets. Okay, great. So I think we can end today's session, and thank you everyone for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you
Very
both.
informative. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.